Welcome to Money Making Conversation. I'm your host, Rashawn McDonald. Each Money Making Conversation talk show is about entrepreneurship and entertainment. I provide the consumer and business owner access to celebrities, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and industry decision makers. I recognize that we all have different definitions of success. For some, it's a sizable paycheck. Mine is helping people wake up and inspiring them to accomplish their goals and live their very best life. These are my passions, and that's what I'm going to do for you. I want you to stop tripping over small challenges and prepare to rise above the bigger obstacles that life is going to present to you. The Money Making Conversation interviews provide relatable information to the listener about career and financial planning, entrepreneurship, motivation, leadership, overcoming the odds, and how to live a balanced life. My next guest has over 40 years of leadership in the service of our communities. He is the former mayor of New Orleans. He was 36 years old when he was first elected mayor. He is currently the CEO of the National Urban League, the nation's largest historic civil rights and urban advocacy organization. He has authored a very good book. It's new, brand new. The Gumbo Coalition, 10 leadership lessons that help you inspire, unite, and achieve. Now available wherever books are sold. Please welcome to Money Making Conversations, the leader of the Gumbo Coalition, my man, Marc Morial.
Hey, brother. Thank you for having me today, and good day to your entire listening audience. Thank you so much.
Well, you know, it's a journey. We've met over the years when I was managing Steve Harvey and producing this morning show,
Yes.
and I've seen you come in and as a representative of the Urban League. Just tell us exactly what is the Urban League. National Urban League.
National Urban League is a historic civil rights and urban advocacy organization founded in 1910 to help black people who were moving to the north from the south to get away from segregation, the Ku Klux Klan, and lynching. And they moved to America's urban communities, Detroit, Chicago, New York, Boston, looking for work. But what they found is they found discrimination, they found prejudice, they found difficult conditions. And we rose to assist them in both making the transition and in having a voice. And those were our earliest days. In the 1960s, the late, great Whitney Young became our leader, and we became a full partner in the 1960s civil rights revolution. Since then, we've been on the front lines working for civil rights and economic opportunity through a dynamic network of 90 affiliates that serve 300 communities in 36 states in the District of Columbia. We're a premier job training organization and job placement organization. We do home buyer preparation. We serve youth and free after-school and academic preparation services, and we serve some 15,000 entrepreneurs each year through our small business centers. We're a dynamic vehicle to help people find economic independence, and we're a voice on the national stage for civil rights and economic opportunity.
Very powerful, very well articulated. I'm not trying to stump you here with this question. What is the difference between the NAACP and the National Urban League?
We're like brothers or cousins. The NAACP was founded a year earlier. They're primarily a volunteer organization that does civil rights activism. They've got a large network. They're in rural, suburban, and urban communities. We are, in addition to being a civil rights organization, we're also do direct services, and most of our work is carried out by paid professional staffers. We've got 2,000 employees across the nation and 90 physical locations in those communities. So we work closely together on a wide range of issues, but distinctly we have the same mission, but we carry out our work sometimes in complementary, sometimes in different ways.
Right. I always view, this has always been my view, that, you know, the National Urban League was more business. I always felt that you guys had more of an active role in the shaping the economics of African Americans or blacks. Was I as I'm wrong or incorrect when I say that? You're
accurate. Yeah, we have a distinct focus on economic opportunity, on helping people find jobs and helping small black businesses and medium-sized black businesses grow and develop, helping people become homeowners. There's no question that our focus on economic empowerment is what I call it, which is opportunity, it's justice, it's independence, is really, really what makes us unique, what makes us what I call sui generis, which is a Latin word that means one of a kind.
Now, let's go to the book now, because of the fact that I just wanted to set the stage, let everybody know what you're doing currently, how you've been doing that job since, 2003, correct?
2003, after 8 great years as mayor of my beloved hometown, New Orleans, I served 2 terms because 2 terms was the limit.
Right.
And then I found an opportunity after practicing law for a year in between City Hall and this job to lead this incredible Urban League movement. I'm standing on the shoulders of some great people like Whitney Young and Vernon Jordan, just to name a few.
Vernon Jordan, powerful name right there. In 2018, a good friend of mine, I'm going to call her a good friend of mine, Lavelle, saw you in New Orleans and talked about a book idea. Now, you're the type of person, I look at your life, that book almost feels like a TV show, okay, when I read it. And so that means that a lot of people have come your way and tapped you on the shoulders. You should write a book. You should write a book. What did she say to you, Lavelle, say to you in 2018 that sent you in the direction, it's time?
I tell you what she did. She sat down and she said, you should write a book, but you should write a leadership book.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I said, interesting. She says, not a memoir or an autobiography, but a book about leadership, because she says that's what people want to hear. They want a book that they can use. They want a book that they can learn from. And, I was impressed. I mean, here was a sister connected with a major publisher, HarperCollins.
Absolutely.
And it was really, really exciting. And, she pushed me.
Mm-hmm.
She pushed me and
that's
she
what
challenged
she does
me.
Now.
And I said yes. And I kind of said, well, walk me through the steps, because I do have an idea because my mom wrote a book, but walk me through the steps. And so, we sat down. She said, put some ideas on paper, write up an outline, let me take a look at it. So one thing led to another, and we spent lots of time together working on this book, and her guidance and insight was just so helpful to me, just so helpful. I couldn't have done it without her. And really her challenge, and I've wanted to do a book for a long time. I self-published a book of speeches in the 1990s. About 15 years ago, I started working on a book. I had an agent. I got too busy. I lost sight and lost sight and lost interest. And so Lavelle, she challenged me, and I'm just excited that something that was a little intimidating at first has come together. I think it's a great book. And
it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful
hopefully
book.
Will inspire people.
I'm going to tell you, you hear the word a lot, common sense, using common. This book is a smart common sense. And when I say that is that I'm a successful guy. I can say that. My resume tells me I can say that publicly. And I have plans to be successful in the future. This book, when I started reading it, okay, it's a little biopic in the beginning, okay, because it sets everything up. And then, but at the end of each chapter, you do a recap about what you just read, just to outline and detail exactly the bullet points that you can take. In fact, when you buy this book, you can almost rip out every recap and just staple those together and put them on your refrigerator and put them on your mirror, and that can be your vision board at your house. That's how.
Let me say this, when it comes to, I say the most important education I ever had was not the undergraduate degree I have from the University of Pennsylvania, not the law degree I have from Georgetown, not the 12 to 15 honorary degrees that I'm so privileged to have been awarded. It's the PhD in common sense I got from my mama.
Yes.
My mama, like so many mamas, was just basically a person of common sense. She knew how to read people. She knew how to read people in terms of who she could trust, who she couldn't trust, who to be wary of. She understood, and she sort of, willed that into me.
Right.
I learned by watching her. I had an incredible dad, but my mom, in terms of really influencing, what I think and who I am, it was just such a powerful, powerful, powerful influence. And it was all about common sense.
Absolutely.
And keeping your feet on the ground and never getting a big head and not thinking you all that, as we say.
Right.
And, I love my mother for teaching me that.
And that's what I love about this book.
She taught it to me, but it's almost like I didn't know I was being taught it. It just kind of is from the powers of observation and the lessons she taught you.
But you're giving those lessons back to us in writing in an organized manner, which is a blessing in itself. I'm talking to Marc Morial. He's currently the CEO of the National Urban League. He has a book called The Gumbo Coalition: 10 Leadership Lessons That Help You Inspire, Unite, and Achieve. Now, I'm from Houston, Texas. So when you start saying the word gumbo, I know exactly what you're talking about from a culinary perspective. I know exactly.
The special thing about gumbo is no two gumbos are just alike.
There you go.
And when you think you finished preparing gumbo, you can always add a few extra ingredients and make it just that much better.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, is the essence of gumbo, is that it is a collection and an amalgamation of various ingredients. In America,
mm-hmm.
and the communities that we live in are that today.
Right.
Made up of all types of people, ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, all sorts of dispositions and orientations. That's the beauty. See, the Gumbo Coalition reflects that very essence, the essence of diversity, of inclusion, of a multifaceted, if you will, nation.
Well, like you said, when we are taking this from the book, the Gumbo Coalition, it was built to include not only African Americans, but also whites, Latinos, Asians, straights, gays, young, old, and all religious groups of my marvelously diverse hometown, New Orleans. That's where it started. You've carried that same mantra, or that same lesson, or that same common sense, put it in this book, but also you use it in your everyday practices. And that's how you carry it through the various chapters in the book, correct?
New Orleans was a city that, in leading the city, you couldn't win an election without a coalition.
Right.
If you couldn't put a coalition together, you couldn't win an election. But you had to have a base. You had to have a powerful base. I had a very strong base of African Americans, but my base was also made up of, public housing residents, young people, small business owners, activists, made up my political base, and it's what I started from. But the base was not enough to win an election. The base was not enough to carry me to victory. So we had to build off the base and build this broad and wide coalition. In America today, to lead effectively at any level, you have to build coalitions. You have to operate off of a base, but build a coalition that allows you to lead with effectiveness.
Awesome. When we come back to the next break, we're going to break down some of the chapters. I'm talking to Marc Morial, the current CEO of the National Urban League. He has an amazing book that is available everywhere online to be bought. It's called the Gumbo Coalition: 10 Leadership Lessons That Help You Inspire, Unite, and Achieve. We'll be right back with more money-making conversation with Marc Morial. Hi, this is Rushion McDonald, and you're listening to Money Making Conversations. Information that you should use as an entrepreneur, as an entertainer, as an employer, as an everyday person who's working 40 hours a week. We're living in the times of the pandemic times, a time where, as African Americans, we are overtly affected by the COVID-19 virus. We're going to come out of it. We're going to come out of it as a people, but we're going to come out of a different people with different values and different cores. And when I read a book like this, that the Gumbo Coalition, 10 Leadership Lessons That Help You Inspire, Unite, and Achieve, is about putting the right people around you, consistently understanding that you cannot do it alone. Each chapter screams that. Each chapter screams to you that you better have a plan, that just don't jump out there on faith with a plan in both hands. And also, when you land, make sure you're landing with people who believe in you and can assist you in your plan for success. That screams in your book, Marc. It really does.
Well, I tell you, my hope is that the book is going to inspire the next generation of leaders. And I talk about setbacks, mm-hmm. and talk about challenges, and talk about the unexpected. And I also talk about where the expectations of me were not that high, like when I had to argue before the state Supreme Court in Louisiana as a 26-year-old. And the named partner in the law firm that I was in told me going into the Supreme Court that I was going to lose the case. And mm-hmm. I remember thinking I was so angry with him for telling me that, but I didn't say a word. I got up, gave an argument, and then as we were walking out of court, he stopped me, he said, "Where did you learn how to argue like that? I never saw a young lawyer argue that way before this court." And anyway, I said, "Well, Coach, I've been on your team for a year. You need to put me in the ball game because your lieutenants had me sitting on the bench." Mm. And a month and a half later, I won the case, and I decided to leave the law firm and do my own thing.
Right.
And so, there's setbacks and people trying to diminish you, even, unintentionally. And it was intentionally or unintentionally. And so, the book is not all roses. It's also about setbacks. It's also about challenges. It's also about low expectations. It's also about overcoming great challenges. And it's about networking. It's about innovation. It's about compassion. Great lessons. It's about teamwork.
Right.
Great lessons that I learned, and I learned them from others.
Absolutely.
And I learned them from observing, and I learned them from getting kicked, getting pushed, getting knocked down, and having to get back up.
Well, the interesting thing about it, let me just compare something. I currently married Stephen A. Smith, one of the highest profile talents in sports.
Oh, man, I love Stephen A. Smith.
That's my boy. I manage him now. But when I met you, I was managing Steve Harvey. And we originally started, I'm just doing a comparison to you. And that's why I feel you started in New Orleans, but what you're doing at the National Urban League was your destiny. It's where we needed your voice. Because Steve, we was great in LA, man. We was LA just tearing it up, man, and #1 morning show in LA from 2000 to 2005. But I would look at him and I always felt that he had more to offer in a national platform.
Oh, yeah.
So we left LA, huge contract, and took a lower deal to be syndicated nationally, because we figured we'll step back but go up, and we did. And his voice in a national level, I feel, was responsible for President Obama being elected twice. I feel we're responsible for a lot of the movements that are positive in music for Black Americans. But more importantly, so when I hear your journey, I'm not saying y'all the same people, but you are an advocate, a game changer in New Orleans. If you would have just stayed in, so it was a blessing to me in this country that you were only given 2 terms, okay? Because we needed you to come out and talk about the 5-point empowerment agenda. That's right. Which is about education and youth empowerment. Come on now.
When I started at the National Urban League, I had no idea where the journey would take me. But, I was blessed, really blessed and privileged to have a chance to serve as mayor, serve as a Louisiana State Senator at a young age. I mean, I got elected at 36. I raised my hand. I just turned 36 years old and accepted the challenge to be mayor. Well, most of my colleagues who were mayors of major American cities, they were 15 to 20 years older than me.
Right.
I mean, I would sit in the room with all the other mayors, and I was a young kid on the block. Well, 6 years later, they elected me to be their president, the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So I was the youngest mayor to ever serve as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors when I took that post in 2000. And so, the opportunity to serve, the reason why I make that point is because I say to young people, you're never too young to take on a challenge, never too young to serve, never too young to excel. And don't let anybody diminish you. But you got to know you're ready.
Yes.
You got to have the confidence in your ability, and you've got to be mature enough to make the difficult and challenging decisions. And, I feel so special that I want to give back the lessons I've learned.
Well,
I want to give back.
You do that.
The insight that I've learned, and that's the motivation, indeed, for the book. And the chance to serve at the national level is something special because I've literally visited almost every state in the union. I've been to every city. I've been on the uptown side, on the downtown side. I've been in the fancy homes. I've been in the neighborhoods. And that opportunity to meet people and see and witness and experience their hopes, their fears, their cheers, and their aspirations is just unlike anything else. And I always feel humbled and appreciative of that.
It's 2 things I want to make sure we talk about before we leave. The State of Black America report, which is like phenomenal. This is under your vision. This is something under your vision that was resurrected. And then the 5-point empowerment agenda. That was under your agenda as well as the National Urban League, correct?
Yeah, so we started out in 2003. We needed to have a framework and a plan to go forward. So we picked 5 issues: education, economics, health, social justice, and civic engagement. And we transformed that into 5 empowerment goals: education, economics, housing, health, and justice. And we transformed the work. So all of the work of the National Urban League is aligned around those 5 issues, around those 5 goals, around those 5 things. And we're clear, we can't be all things to all people, deal with every single issue that might be of concern to Black America or to urban communities. We needed to create a coherent framework and focus. And that's indeed what we did. The State of Black America was started by Vernon Jordan in 1976. Right. And when I took over in 2003, it needed to be revived. It needed to be strengthened. So we added a statistical component, a permanent statistical component where we measure the same numbers every single year in an index called the Equality Index. We compare blacks and whites, unemployment, health outcomes, lifespans, home ownership rates, and across the board, so that every year we can report on the numbers, on the facts, insofar as America's racial disparities are concerned. And we report on that, and we continue to report on that every year, and it continues to show disparities, not only in health, but the greatest disparities are in economics. Not only in health and economics, but in education, in how the criminal justice system treats us, in civic engagement. This is the work, of the Urban League movement today. This is the work. It's framed around the state of Black America. And we compare blacks and whites. We compare blacks, whites, and Latinos because we need to understand where we are as a nation if economic parity is our objective.
And that was. And that's what I'm just talking when I'm speaking to you, is that when I'm reading the book, and I'm breaking down different chapters, the one thing that I kept hearing ringing out to me was the plan, how you having a plan, and then how you deliver the plan. That's what this book really talks about. You can have a lot of brilliant ideas, basically what you're saying. To
build a house, you have to have a plan. Yes. To cook a good meal, you have to have a recipe.
Yes.
To be a great musician, you've got to have a musical score, even if you improvise in between. To lead, you need a plan.
Yes.
To fight a war, you need a plan.
Yes.
To bring about peace, you need a plan. So planning is a really important element of leadership, and then knowing when to modify the plan.
Right.
There are times that come when you might have to throw the plan right out the window and respond. So right now, we have to respond to this pandemic. So we might put a plan aside, but what we quickly do is develop a new plan. And it might be, let's develop a short-term plan. Let's focus on what we need to do in order to confront the challenges of now. So planning is critical, and learning how to plan, and then communicating your plan, knowing how to communicate your plan, knowing how to talk to your constituents, to talk to your followers about your plan, not just have it living in a file, not just have it living on your computer, not just have it living in your head.
When I was reading the book, I'm talking to Marc Morial. He's the current CEO of the National Urban League. He has a fantastic new book called The Gumbo Coalition, 10 Leadership Lessons that help you inspire. That will help you inspire, unite, and achieve your goals, your dreams, your organization, and rising to the top. When I was reading this and we were talking about the plan, and then I got to the 5 points of the agenda, and then I got to the state report, and then I read the report, and it was something that really stunned me, that was talking about Native Americans were denied an opportunity to vote in 1882, and then were not guaranteed. The last state to guarantee them was New Mexico in 1962. And I always tell people, my degree is in mathematics. Numbers don't lie. And that's why I like the way you do business. I like the way you talk. Because in your book, you talk about numbers. You bring up statistics. You lay out a plan that this is not a theory. This is how you should do business. You show examples of how you did business, how you had to maneuver, the people you had to maneuver with, the people you had to work with, people who didn't like you, how you had to bring them on your side of the table. And I always tell people, I said 90% of the people that I make money with, I don't really care what they eat for breakfast. I really don't. It's how I do business with them in public. And that's what your book is about.
My book also talks about networking. And in networking, we talk about different kinds of friends. You have intimate friends, and then you have those who you are acquainted with, and then you just have those that you professionally know. So the idea is you can know a lot of people.
Yes, sir.
But just because someone's your friend doesn't mean they're your intimate friend. But then many times acquaintances have great value. They validate. They're what cements your reputation or can undermine your reputation if you develop a bad reputation. So, in my book, it's all about practical tips. It's all about experiences that I've had, and it's all about the people who've helped me become who I've become.
But more importantly, they're relatable experiences. That's what I appreciated most about your book. I wanted to let you know that I have a social media, almost 1 million followers. I have a fan club newsletter that goes out every Friday at 9 a.m. to 90,000 fan club members. I want to put a banner of your book in there.
You're the man.
I'm just letting you know.
You are the man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. And to come on my show and allow me to let you know the greatness that you've accomplished in your life, which you know. But sometimes, like everybody, you need to be reminded that you are a gift to America. You are changing, not only, you've changed my life, but my daughter's 22, and you're laying a path for her to have a great life. So thank you for coming on Money Making Conversation, Marc Morial.
Hey, I appreciate you so much. God bless you, and be safe, be healthy, and keep the faith always.
And get those banners to me so I can promote your book, okay?
You got it. All right.
If you want to hear more interviews on Money Making Conversations, please go to moneymakingconversation.com.